they're, in many cases, the most affordable way for people to own a home in New Hampshire.
Seeing no additional questions, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I do have,
Just hand it to Aaron.
I'm asking a question. This is an amendment that was asked by the subsurface folks at, that is the people in charge of the subsurface division at DES. I offered to present it. If you want it at this time,
You're going to give it to Aaron, and Senator Perkins Quokka, I'm sure, will be very interested in that,
she has a copy.
because for it to be accepted, you need one of us to sponsor it.
Indeed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. I still have 3 people, and there's a lot of stuff that's been done. I'm 50-plus minutes overtime. So next is Nick Taylor.
That's perfect, because I will be pretty quick here. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Nick Taylor. I'm the Executive Director of the Workforce Housing Coalition of the Greater Seacoast. We're a nonprofit that serves Stratford and Rockingham counties that seeks to advance diverse housing options. I also serve on the Zoning Board of Manchester, but not here in that capacity. We are in strong support of Senate Bill 538 because it gives our communities additional policy tools to help address the housing shortage, and it creates some reasonable basic standards. There's been some really great progress in the legislature on housing, including the most recent budget, but there is still so much more to do. We do support all of the different provisions in this bill. We think some could even go further around some of the parking requirements, but this is a very reasonable compromise. We do a lot of work with communities that use 79E. It has been a fantastic tool. The ability to extend this to office conversions and some of the other commercial uses that have been suggested, I think, would be excellent and would be much heavily utilized and is extremely relevant for our economy as it stands today. And we believe, again, that the other provisions are reasonable, that they weigh the private property rights, the rights of municipalities, as well as developers, and getting this housing actually built in a way that makes sense. So, again, we're in strong support here. We think this will help our businesses, our economy, and our workers who desperately need more housing. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
From the senators? Seeing none, thank you very much. Alyssa?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Alyssa Margolin. I serve as Director of Housing Action New Hampshire. We're a statewide coalition of 80 organizations united to improve state and federal policy so everyone in New Hampshire has a place to call home. We're in strong support of Senate Bill 538. I know you're running behind. I'm going to stick to one theme, and that is reasonableness. As the kind of chief coalition coordinator, my team and I do a lot of listening to what stakeholders think would be effective policy. Where would effective policy meet political viability? We know that we have 3 recent polls that say that the housing crisis is the #1 issue for Granite Staters, and certainly that's translating into more community support, more openness, more political will, a lot more housing bills in the legislature this year. But I do have members who say, for example, on parking, well, let the market decide. Let me build 20 multifamily units with a parking alternative at a lease downtown or fewer parking, and if the market if residents want to purchase or want to rent, that's up to them. Certainly other cities have tried this, thinking that endowing municipalities with the right to regulate parking is not appropriate when the market should decide it. I think instead what we did is we brought together different perspectives and came up with the proposal before you about parking, about saying, let's ask municipalities or direct municipalities to say that they must look at parking alternatives. The New Hampshire Zoning Atlas that was released by the Center for Ethics at St. Anselm College has also inspired a productive conversation around what reasonableness is when it comes to local zoning. And I think the GIS mapping and the pictures really gave us for the first time a picture of what in some places is just extremely unreasonable. It's not using zoning for the general welfare of the public, the safety, or the environment. It's essentially just using to obstruct people from growing their businesses or growing their families in a certain place. And so I think what this bill does is coalesce several somewhat technical but reasonable changes that the state could start to make and build on a rather good history in the last several years of investing in addressing this crisis. You did that in your last budget, and certainly now we have the upcoming rollout of the Housing Champions Municipal Incentive Program, and we see this in many ways as the next necessary toolbox to really doing something about the issue. So with that, I'll conclude, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Questions from the senators? Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've asked this question a few times already, but again, the issue with the lot size restriction of 10,000 and how some neighborhoods or communities in general are rejecting municipal services to avoid falling under that. Is there any way or a suggestion on how to bridge the gap and make a compromise there?
I mean, I do think that we would be open to compromise language in that section just because it's such an important part of this bill. So if there's a desire to come together and find something, that this committee feels okay about moving forward, we, of course, would want to be at the table and would look forward to working with you on that. I also think that, as Mr. Frost said, it does apply to, there is a provision for non-water sewer as well as water sewer. So we should certainly keep that, and but we should make sure that we're thinking through what it is to incentivize infrastructure where that makes sense, because you don't want unintended consequences. So appreciate you thinking through what that should look like.
And just the point that I'm getting to is
Sure.
the communities are rejecting it simply because they just, now you can't, good luck, now you can.
No, I'm familiar with the
on us.
issue. Yeah, and so that is not the outcomes we want, right? The Housing Champion program is certainly about incentivizing through infrastructure dollars. And so we understand that and the importance of that connection. So I guess the answer is yes, open to compromise, open to writing something, very much want to include that in the final bill.
And just one follow-up.
Follow-up?
And just for foreshadowing, I know in North Salem, this would be incredibly unpopular. They're not on water and sewer, but I can imagine communities like Pelham, this would be incredibly unpopular. And I know those communities and neighborhoods have spoken against municipal services, Windham as well, citing this exact reason. So I know in my area, this has been a problem, so.
Yeah, so stepping forward and working on a solution that you think would be more viable is certainly sounds like a good idea, a good step forward.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, thank you very much. Dave Duvet. You are the last one. You're the one that's preventing all those people standing in the hall from coming in.
Well, let's see what we can do about that.
All right.
For the record, my name's Dave Juvet. I'm a Senior Vice President with the Business and Industry Association. We serve as New Hampshire's statewide Chamber of Commerce. We're here in strong support of Senate Bill 538. Our members have identified workforce housing, the lack of available and affordable housing for their workforce to be a key top policy priority. So we urge you to look favorably on this bill, work on compromises where they're needed, but please recognize that this is an incredibly important issue for New Hampshire employers. That concludes my testimony. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the senators? Seeing none, thank you very much. Is there anyone who did not sign up that wants to speak? Okay, seeing none. There was one person who did sign up that didn't speak in support, and how many people did we have online? And while she's looking that up, Senator Abbott, Senator Murphy, I'm going to assign one of you to work with Senator Perkins Quokka on revisions to this. So Senator Murphy has volunteered to work with you, Senator.
There were 45 people signed in support and 14 opposed.
Okay, and with that, we will close this public hearing, and we'll open the next one in just a couple of minutes. them a minute or two. I'm going to do this a little differently than what I would normally do because we're not introducing a bill, we're introducing an amendment, so I'm going to stay up here and speak. That way everybody here and everybody out in the hall will be able to hear, and then we can call everybody up as we go along. All right. I am Senator James Gray, representing Senate District 6, which starts up in Alton and Gilmanton, goes down Route 11 to Rochester. We had a public hearing on the underlying bill, and there was an awful lot of discussion, an awful lot of disagreements in the things that needed to happen. That's Senate Bill 448. Frankly, when you look back in the history of the Senate Bill 448 and the chapter law that comes before it, there has been discussion after discussion after discussion here in Concord. My purpose in writing the amendment that I've got and the addition to that, which I sent out last night to a couple of people after getting at least one of the state reps to give it a chop, is intended to get us to a place where we get 99% of this out of chapter law, and that Woodsville and Haverhill are governed by the Chapter 52 of state law, and get us to a place where if you can come up with an agreement, then that agreement is going to govern what happens between the two and the financial arrangements. And if you can't, then there's going to be law that is suspended while you have an agreement that is going to go back into effect, and it's going to prescribe what happens. Right now, your reliance on things going into a warrant article, we thought in 21 that that was going to work and that was going to make everything hunky-dory. It has not, okay? And when I look at this situation, we have, if we started from scratch and we had a community, okay, and we were going to break it into 2 different towns, be simple, right? You take yours, I'll take mine, and anything we shared in the past, we'll make some kind of an agreement to go do that. Well, we don't have that. What we have is a community that another village district, and even though we call it a fire district, I'm going to start referring to maybe a little bit as a village district, because that's what Chapter 52 talks about. Haverhill has the ability to tax, and the people in Haverhill pay that tax, and the people in Woodsville pay that tax, and the people in the other village districts in Haverhill pay that tax. And for whatever reasons, it's fine that Woodsville wants to have a village district. Great. They want to have their own highway department. They want to have their own fire station. From Haverhill, and I tax them in Woodsville, that they're paying double tax. Is that true? Is it not true? Well, let's look at it. If we did away with the highway department in Woodsville, what would happen? Haverhill would be responsible for all those roads in Woodsville and to maintain them. But because Woodsville has a highway department, there ought to be some compensation. And you see that in the passage of warrant articles over the years to compensate Woodsville for some of that. What I have in this sheet here, and I sent it out and encouraged people to forward it to people so they could read it, is a formula. Is it the right formula? No, it's not near enough, good enough, okay? But right now, what it says is that you've got 5 miles of road, you've got 150 miles of road. In Haverhill, whatever it costs Haverhill to maintain their roads, then Woodsville ought to get some money to pay for theirs. How do I figure that out? Well, I'm probably going to go back and speak to DRA about what is in the MS1 report. I'm going to go pick line items out of the thing because we get very particular in there about how we charge different things in the MS1, and I'm going to say these are the things that you have to go and look at when you determine how much it costs you to maintain your roads. It may be that in addition to this, we may want to say, well, you get compensated with 95%, goes back to Woodsville. We'll give Haverhill 5% of that money, that they can keep because it's, they're providing a service. They're collecting the taxes that would be due. But they're not, the agreement needs to make sure that Haverhill is paying whatever it is that it would cost them in addition to what they're paying now. Not any more, not any less, but what it costs them. And the proposals I've gotten from each side, one is they should pay more, and one is, no, we shouldn't pay anything or we should pay less. That's where I'm trying to get you to, okay? And the words that are in here, although they do have to change, you may want to add sidewalks, all right? Sidewalk plows, and paving, plowing sidewalks. I don't know in Haverhill and Woodsville whether you have any sidewalks you have to plow, but I would guess you do. I would guess that, there's other services that the highway departments are providing, okay? But we're not going to charge Haverhill a whole bunch of extra money because Woodsville wants to do something in addition to what Haverhill does for their own people. Because that's not fair to Haverhill. But we do want Woodsville compensated so that the taxes that they are paying Haverhill for those roads are returned to them so that they can reduce their tax rate. When I looked up the tax rates right now, in Haverhill, it's $28+ per thousand. In Woodsville, you pay the $28+ per thousand, plus you already pay, and last year it was reduced from an 8-something a thousand to 4-something a thousand because you used unassigned fund balance. Okay? The people in Woodsville need to think about, is that worth what I'm getting? And make a decision. I've got, 3 other village districts in Haverhill. None of them have been in here in front of this committee? None of them? In the time I've been here, and that's 8 years, and the 2 years that I was in the House? None of them. So we got to get to a place where we can solve this, where we can do the right thing for the citizens of Haverhill and for the citizens of Woodsville, and stop the bickering. That's what this bill is supposed to do. Okay? With that, I'll end my testimony. If you have any questions for me, Senator Ravis, I'd be glad to answer them before we get to the list.
Mr. Chairman, you did an excellent job presenting the language of the amendment.
All right. So, first thing we're going to do is, on here, let me find you, Codling. Where's Ms. Codling? You're first up. and please the other people, we're going to get the two principals that have been conversing with me to speak first. Other people that come up should try not to repeat things that have already been talked about, okay? All right, that's the ground rules. Britt,
Thank you. Good morning, and thanks for allowing us to represent Sorry. My name is Bridget Codling, and I've been the Haverhill Town Manager since April of 2019. And my testimony here today is from a business perspective, not a personal one. And I speak here today with the support of the current Haverhill Select Board and continued support from past selectmen, two of which are here with me today, as well as the support of a large contingency of Haverhill residents. As I testified last month, the town of Haverhill is 52 square miles, and the Woodsville Fire District is around 3 square miles. However, you might not know that until 1990, the Woodsville Fire District was only 1 square mile. In 1990, there was a threefold expansion of the boundaries of the district, which was proposed by the district and agreed to by the Haverhill Select Board at that time. The expansion in 1990 and subsequent changes to the Woodsville special legislation in 1995 and 2008 resulted in increasingly large sums of Haverhill tax dollars being sent to the Woodsville Fire District. You see, the Woodsville road money calculation was in part based upon the valuation of the district, and the expansion of the district drastically increased the district's valuation. I have heard it stated that the Woodsville residents have paid sizable taxes to maintain their highway department. However, that hasn't always been the case. In 2013 and 2014, the district's tax rate was 70 cents per thousand. In 2015, it was 79 cents per thousand, and in 2016, 2017, and 2018, the district's tax rate was actually 0. The tax rate for the Woodsville Fire District was 0, and no taxes were raised from the district residents for 3 straight years. This shows that for many years, Haverhill residents were in fact not only paying for the district's fire and highway department operations, but Haverhill residents were also paying for the rest of the district's non-enterprise operations, as well as the district's proportionate share of services that the town provides to its town residents as well as its district residents, such as for welfare, policing, assessing, town clerk, town administration, tax collection, and other services. Through analytical evaluation, conscientious town leadership, education, and a change to the legislation in 2021, over the past 4 years, we have seen that the Woodsville Fire District's tax rate has increased. It's increased to a level that is representative of a district that provides the kind of services that they do. They provide an extensive number of services to the district residents. The district is now again contributing toward the cost of services provided to them also by the town. Over the past 3 years, the Woodsville Fire District has received no tax dollars from the town of Haverhill. They, in turn, have taxed their own residents and funded their own operations, and Woodsville's tax rate in recent years has looked very similar to other districts. Another district, the Mountain Lakes District, which provides many services to its residents and funds them through the taxation of their own residents. In 2021, Senator Guida's legislation was meant to bring an end to the town's funding any portion of the Woodsville Fire District's operations. Senator Guida asserted in writing to the DRA that his legislation was never meant to create a loophole by which the district could file petitions for Haverhill tax dollars. The assertion by the district that the 2021 legislation allows them to place articles on the town's warrant has created much animosity, as we've heard from Senator Gray. It has tarnished friendships, damaged relationships, and perpetuated a divide in the town that is only growing each year as the district files new petitions for articles to be placed on the town's warrant. It has also cost the district, the town, and the state an awful lot of time and money. At the last Senate hearing, we heard from Lynette McComber, who has represented the Woodsville Fire District in numerous litigations over the past 3 years. She stated that this committee should not decide on this bill this year. However, I just wanted to point out that in June of 2021, she's on the record as stating that the recent passage of HB 2 does not moot Woodsville's claim for relief or the motion for partial summary judgment at that time. I liken that to what's happening with the Supreme Court right now. So the district's pending case against the DRA is a very good example of the issue caused by the perceived loophole within the current legislation, which can be corrected in perpetuity through the passage of the current bill. That testimony was written before hearing the modifications that are being presented by Senator Gray today. And so the only thing that I would add to that is that we have, as a town, come together numerous times with the Woodsville Fire District since 2019. Actually, Senator Gaida moderated a meeting with them in November of 2019 to try to come together and modify the calculation for the Woodsville Fire District's funding. They have all failed. Every time we have tried to come together, those negotiations have broken down very quickly and have failed. So basically what I want to say is that we have tried to compromise, and the compromises have never worked out. My concern with the current modifications to the proposed bill are that we still won't be able to come together. Some of the things that we've argued over in the past are the net budget versus a gross budget, which is a huge, it makes a huge difference when you calculate these types of funds. The gross budget is obviously everything included, without the revenues being taken into consideration. When you take into consideration all of the revenues, you come to a net budget, and that net budget is what you end up taxing the people for. So I've heard numerous times from the Woodsville Fire District that all they want is their taxes back. Jennifer Boucher and I have performed that calculation, and it was actually presented on the floor of town meeting last year by someone who owns quite a few properties right in the Woodsville Fire District, and it was again declined. It was not accepted as a viable option, even though that calculation determined exactly what their tax contribution is to both the fire operations in town and the highway operations in town, which I think is what you're trying to get to. So we have performed those calculations. We've had those calculations. We have them available, and certainly can bring them to the table.
Questions? Thank you very much. Ms. Neto, are you going to speak for the?
I'm Lynette Macumber, but I'm happy to speak first. Are you speaking?
No, I would.
I want one person that's going to represent the town, the village of Woodsville to speak now, and then I'm going to go to Representative Ladd, and then I'm going to ask the Senator Gendro if she wants to speak, and then we're going to go back to the list. So I want one person to do the summary of where we are.
Thank you, Senator.
And I didn't see you on the list, is that right?
I should be on there, Lynette Macumber.
Okay. All right.
So I'm Lynette Macumber. I've represented the Woodsville Fire District in litigation since 2019. I don't want to rehash the circumstances that led to 2019 litigation or current issue that's pending before the Supreme Court. Generally, we agree with the intention of the amendment Senator Gray has drafted, which guarantees some specific amount being returned to Woodsville each year. We've also put forth an amendment with more, I think, specific formulas that relate to the assessed valuation based on the MS1 form for highway operations. And with respect to fire department operations, we think that should be based on a per capita basis, based on the population of Woodsville versus the town as a whole, because any citizen can call the fire department at any time. And Woodsville is really the commercial center of the town, so it makes sense for that to be based on the per capita basis, which is actually how the ambulance service is worked out right now. So there is a contract in place between Woodsville and Haverhill for the provision of ambulance services that's based on a per capita calculation. So I did bring copies of our proposed amendment for the committee, so I just want to hand these to you. Thank you.
Go get 'em.
The other thing I just wanted to add is we would want to add into whichever amendment ends up being passed, language that does permit Woodsville to vote to return its highway operations to the town of Haverhill. That was in SB 448 as introduced, and that is helpful language giving Woodsville that option, just because under RSA 52 currently, there's no provision that allows a village district to vote to remove one of its purposes. So that's language we would want to see include in the amendment. I don't think there's really, there's no loophole in the current law. I do want to address that statement. It was drafted very clearly to allow voters to decide to appropriate funds to Woodsville or not. Haverhill's position, which has now been echoed by the DRA, is that one municipality cannot fund another municipality. That's not what's happening here. Obviously, as you've recognized, the town is funding one of its village districts, and only in part. It's, you know, it's not completely funding the highway and fire department budgets of Woodsville. And I'll let some of the Woodsville commissioners speak more specifically to that. But we would ask the committee to consider our proposed amendment, which does have clear, I think, and specific formulas in it that are intended to be proportionate. Thank you.
Okay. Questions? Seeing none. Representative Vlad.
Well, good morning, Senator Gray and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Rick Ladd. I'm a representative from Haverhill, New Hampshire. That's all of Haverhill, Haverhill Corner, North Haverhill, Pike, Mountain Lakes, and Woodsville. And for the record, I have been previously speaking to various committees when we dealt with other bills regarding the issue of supporting Woodsville or supporting the other precincts and districts within Haverhill. Going back, and I'll just give you a brief, I support absolutely everything that was stated by the last speaker. So I'm not going to replicate any of that. I think the speaker that spoke on behalf of Woodsville laid it out pretty clearly. I want to go back just a few years. I've been in this House for 16 years now. 15 years ago, Senator Reynolds and I, Representative Paul Ingebrigtsen, put forth SB 75. That was a formula that developed to distribute funds to Woodsville from the town. When that was done, it was done with unanimous support from the precinct commissioners and the select board. 11 years ago, when we recognized that the fire districts were paying for all the services and those living within the Haverhill area outside those fire districts weren't paying any support for fire, we met commissioners of all those districts along with the select board and decided how can we best remedy this. We have now recalculated that formula. Then at that time we recalculated it so that every resident in the whole area of Haverhill would be paying for fire support, just not the fire districts themselves, in respect for mutual aid and support of those areas. Lastly, when we had an issue where Walmart was coming into town, and we had issues in Woodsville that needed support, and several of the commissioners that were on the commission at that time, and when I was chairing the select board, we came together unanimously and said, Walmart, you're not coming in until we get the stoplights in, the sidewalks in, water systems corrected, emergency service lighting in. When you get all that in place according to the contract, then come. We worked together, and as absolutely Walmart complied. In the past year, since 2019, that relationship between the precincts and the town have been destroyed. There is no communication going on that's really relevant to where we need to go. It's tearing the town apart, absolutely. SB 26, we thought would be the end of having to have the state take care of what should be done locally. Money was provided through, if this town voted to support Woodsville, it was done. That happened. Then there's been issues about other issues, whether somebody's bonded or not, whether the surveyor's bonded, and et cetera, et cetera. And it went on and on. And the threat that it was sent, $250 fine per year if you don't get your audits done or you don't get this done, for $250 per day. threatening with a forensic audit, which never came out to be. Yes, there was some deficiencies in the accounting up in Woodsville, but nothing to the point of forensic audit. This is the type of fear-mongering that's occurred within the community, and it's got to stop. And the way this will stop is we don't open up the back door so the state can come in and try to fix this situation. This is not a state issue. This has to be settled by the people of the area, Haverhill and Woodsville, and all the precincts coming together and saying, what is best for our community? And we know what we can do. We've done it. And in order to accomplish that, and I've looked at several of the amendments, and Senator Gray, I compliment you on your efforts, which you've done. You've really moved forward towards that end. There are a few areas which need to be looked at in terms of the funding elements and the costing elements within how things are handled. But I think we're getting there. But if we can't get there, one opportunity would be to have something done like an interim study so it can be done properly. I don't like going that direction, but that's an option that is available to the committee. So I'm just going to conclude by saying that dealing with the issues that Woodsville is a community, a district, which is offering us those commercial services that our community Haverhill needs. That's where it all is. Walmart, Shaw's, various restaurants, Dunkin' Donuts if you like a coffee in the morning, McDonald's if you like a hamburger at noon, Ace Hardware Store, they're all there. That's where our revenue support is for the community other than residential placements. Yes, you see a few things in North Haverhill, but the majority of revenue on taxes comes from that commercial properties there. Woodsville delivers services which we've always appreciated: emergency response services, ambulance, fire. They have sewer and water, all our sewage that comes down through the lines, which Haverhill does own out in the area of Haverhill, but it's all processed in Woodsville. It's a unique district. It dates back way before my grandfathers came here back in the 1700s. They were founders of Haverhill. I think they roll over in their grave if they saw what was going on here now. I would appreciate it if we all recognize the only way it's really going to be corrected is we get ownership and communication happening locally. And that hasn't happened in the last 3 or 4 years. It's like the bully in the recess yard. And so I'll conclude with that, and hopefully, Senator Gray, I respect what you've done to this point. You've made some miles, good miles in this thing, gone and listened to people, and you continue to do so. I appreciate that, and I believe what was reported just prior to me by the speaker from representing Woodsville needs to be listened to, and probably there's some areas that can be worked on there. Interim study may be a way to deal with this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions from Senator Abbas?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly appreciate the testimony of not having the state, I guess, come in and butt its head into this dispute, but I guess I of all people, understand how contentious litigation can be, and it seems like this has been going on a while in that community. So where's the end in sight? I mean, how do we get everyone to make up and be happy again?
Well,
Senator,
Senator, you're correct. But when I go back to the days that Paul Lamont was the representative here back in the 1990s, it wasn't contentious. You go to the days when Paul Ingebrigtsen and I represented the town, it wasn't contentious. We worked together. All of a sudden, in the last few years, it has become contentious. And I sat at one of those meetings where Senator Guida was there at the select board, and we asked, can we work together? And I don't believe that's really been, yes, you're going to go through pitfalls and ups and downs during any kind of negotiations or working like that, but you don't give up. We're not doing that now. It's all been led to the attorneys to deal with. It's gone to the court system. Does it really need to go there when we're spending over $100,000 in legal fees? We could better use that money locally. And somehow we got to turn this around, turn it around, and really get the heads working together. Get your commissioners in get your select board members in and sit down and have an open discussion and move forward without somebody threatening litigation or saying, I can't speak because it's in the court system right now. That's where we are. It's at a point where all discussions have stopped.
Follow up?
Any thought on, I understand what happened in the past, but maybe looking forward might be a better outcome.
You're going to hear some thoughts coming up from people that are coming behind me. You will have people such as the president of Woodsville Guarantee coming in here shortly and giving a perspective. There's ways this... Haverhill is a community, when we look at our master plan, the master plan says, why did you come to Haverhill? Because of the lifestyle, because of the ruralness of the community, because of what this community offers my children and where I want them to grow up. And I believe that's a good draw for people moving up from the Lebanon, Hanover area. But with this contention going on, it's not helping things. And I think we got to just all back off, take a deep breath, stand up, spread our feet out, and take a breath and saying, we can fix this. And not through the court system. And what you can do is through your state legislation here, look at that SB 26, look at 448, and say, how can we help resolve this? The first thing you need to do is get the state out of this. We've done this over and over. I can't count the number of bills that come forward since I came into this house in 2008 regarding Woodsville. First several years, we resolved all that cooperatively. And SB 75 is a prime example of that. So I think this can be accomplished. I think we have people up in Haverhill that like to see this happen. I talk about Haverhill inclusive of Woodsville. I do not want to see Woodsville go a different direction. If we did that, you would have a residential area, and then you'd have the commercial area up here. And we need each other to survive.
Additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Senator Genro, you're... Just a couple of words. Absolutely.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name's Carrie Gendro. I am Senator for District 1, which does include Haverhill and the 4 districts. And I will defer to more testimony because I know there are several people behind me that want to speak. But I just want to give a huge shout out to the committee and to Senator Gray for taking this on. It's very difficult when you have history that goes way back and families fighting and people that should be working together. It's a lot of energy that's wasted when it could be moving forward. So I just want to give a shout out to Senator Gray and the committee for taking this on and working this through. And I do look forward to a resolution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to head down through the list. We're going to try to take an opposed, I guess maybe 2 opposed to 1 support, because that's the way that it is on the list. Jennifer Bauer or Boucher?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the committee for allowing me to speak today. My name is Jennifer Boucher. I'm the Assistant Town Manager for the town of Haverhill, and I oversee the financial department for the town. When the amendment came through, the original amendment came through, I was pleased to see that, and I was happy that the committee had taken the time to really look into this issue for us and to try and come to a resolution. I was happy to see that it being brought back to chapter law and not having all these carve-outs related to one particular district. The revision to the amendment gives me a lot of concern. I have been with the town since 2016. As the town manager has testified, we have tried to sit down at the table with Woodsville to come to a resolution. When we did so in 2019, the commissioners didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to see a change. As I testified last time, I had presented a starting block for a conversation on where we could go. And they didn't even want to look at that. Woodsville has been difficult to work with. We reached a settlement on the litigation that was paid out to Woodsville in 2 installments. When we were faced with the difficult issue of not being able to set the tax rate and being low on funds, I went to the select board and asked permission to write a letter to the Woodsville commissioners to ask them if they would defer the second settlement payment until after we got resolution on the tax rate, to give us more money, to give us more cash flow. Before I was even able to get that letter, I received an email stating that there would be no consideration of that. This is what we're dealing with Woodsville. And it's been incredibly frustrating. We've given Woodsville millions of dollars with no accounting. In 2020, I sent a 91A request on behalf of the town to Woodsville asking for a detailed analysis of the highway department and how the funds were spent, and it was denied. So Haverhill has not seen an accounting of the money that we've sent to them. And that's going to continue more than likely if we continue to give them any type of funding. We'll be sending money to Woodsville without having representation on how it gets spent on the roads. And as you said, the roads are part of Haverhill. So ultimately, the goal would be to just unite the departments. But again, it's been very difficult to get Woodsville to come to the table and agree to something. They've said that their roads are special, but they're not really any different than other paved roads in town. Underneath them, they have substructures, they have the water system, they have the sewer system. But as we testified last time, those are paid for by those separate enterprises. If a water main breaks and you need to dig up the road, the water enterprise pays for that construction. So coming to any type of resolution in terms of what that funding would be, we argued over a gross and a net budget. A former town manager testified that a gross operating budget was a made-up term. Being in finance, I know that there's a difference between the two. And as the town manager testified, it can be drastic when you look at the revenues that come into the town. So I'd just like you to take all of this into consideration as you review this bill. I know that the thing we all want is come to some type of resolution, but I think we're very diametrically opposed on how to come to that resolution. Thank you.
Okay, any questions from the senators? Seeing none, Kevin Shelton.
Good morning. Shelton, I thank you all for listening to me today and allowing me the chance to testify. I moved to Woodsville in 1987. I'm not quite a lifelong resident, but I am a business owner and the administrator for the Woodsville Fire District. I've been there for 4 years. Woodsville's a unique district. It's the economic center of Haverhill, as you've heard. We house the elementary school as well as the high school. In fact, I think the district funded and built those 2 buildings and gave them to the school district. Your efforts and the efforts of this committee, I had a difficult choice to sign up in support of this or in opposition. I will say that my concerns. I'm happy that that there's a vehicle to determine funding, as the chairman put. We probably don't agree on what those numbers are at this point in time. There's been testimony that we've been litigious. I think it was the last and as well as today.
we've been so because at times Haverhill hasn't chosen to follow the law as it's been written, and it's Woodsville with either going without or fighting for what we felt the law said that we were, I don't want to use the word entitled, but that should have come our way. Even as we speak, we've yet to receive block grant money funding for 2023. And, you know, that was written into the 2021 legislation and shouldn't be contested at this point in time. We have done, as I testified the last time I was here, in my tenure as administrator, we've done 8 years of audits. You know, the year for the highway system and for all of Woodsville and its enterprise companies. Just on the funding formula that have been proposed or possibly proposed, to kind of put in things into perspective and a thought process, Woodsville's, and this was, I think, Wikipedia this morning, represents from the fire side 1.9 square miles out of 51.2 for hay. You know, so the quick math on that would be 3.7% of funding towards the fire department, and it would be rather small considering the capital investment that's required to me and buy the equipment necessary to do that. So I think a little more room there. On the highway percentages, it's somewhere in the 14 to 17% by the quick math, which isn't a long ways from where we suggested on a evaluation percentage. So I think with some work and if things aren't rushed through, I feel optimistic, cautiously optimistic that we could get somewhere that would be lasting, and I certainly would like to see us get there.
Questions from senators? Seeing none, thank you very much. Joe, and it starts with an M.
Me not speaking.
All right.
The bill.
Okay. It's right, whoever signed in right underneath Sheldon. Could be. Hey, I can't attest to that I understand your printing, but that's all right.
Well, it was probably better than my writing. I was a police officer for the town of Haverhill for 20 years. I was on the
You got to state your name and
Joseph C. Massini,
and from
Woodsville.
closer. Yeah, we want to be able to hear you.
Okay. Well, I served on the police department and the budget committee for 20 years for the town of Haverhill. I was a commissioner in Woodsville for 43 years. And it took times when things didn't work. But the thing that being taken into consideration here are like the boundaries that you come out that were presented. The reason that the districts were the size, and all the districts except for Mountain Lakes were there for fire protection when they started. But the reason that they were the size that they were was because that was before the fire apparatus was a wagon with ladders on it and a hose reel on wagons. These were pushed by the men and pulled by the men. They didn't have horses. They didn't have full-time fire stations.
We need to keep
That's
this
why the
short.
districts are that small.
I've got a whole list, so.
Okay. Woodsville paid for the land for the high school and the building and turned it over to the town. The Water and Light paid for the community building where all the sports and some of the classrooms are, and turned it over to town. And it's all been in a spirit of cooperation until recently. When Woodsville put in the sewer treatment plant, we took on Wells River, Vermont with the first interstate agreement for wastewater in the United States. And we took Grafton County on at the same time. And that all worked. And it took a lot to get through. Everything has worked until recently. And now there's just so much dissension. You can't operate a fire department for 3% of that budget. You can't operate a road department for that. These things have to change. I thank you very much for your time. And like I said, I was there for 40 years on the district, and it all worked.
Okay, questions from the senators? Seeing none, thank you very much. Glenn English?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, senators, for allowing me to speak. Just a little information about me. I was the Haverhill Town Manager from 1995 to 2015. I also came back as Town Manager for a short period after my successor resigned and prior to Bridget coming in as permanent Town Manager. Mr. Messini is not mistaken in what he says in terms of how the town and the districts have operated in the past. And I don't only include the Woodsville district. We've got the Mountain Lakes District Corner District and North Haverhill Water and Light. They provide basically water services and street lights to their districts. Mountain Lakes District is a recreational community. Quite a bit of houses, quite a bit of real estate value. We had disagreements over 20 years. We had disagreements between the town and all of the districts. Always worked out either at my level or at the select board district commissioner level, without lawyers, without court, without the state. When we came to the state, and we did a couple of times, we came in agreement. The district, Woodsville District, and the town came to the state already agreeing to a change in state law, which we both asked for and which was granted. And Representative Ladd had a lot to do with that. All changed, and I think it's due to the change in the town administration. And I don't like to single out individuals, but I will say that the administration and the select board have been hostile to the district for the last 3 years. I can figure that out. I've been around. I know how it works. The district has tried to work with the town, and the town's route was to come to the legislature and strong-arm the district using state legislation. Now, I'm a taxpayer in town, and I'm a business owner in the Woodsville Fire District. And if any of you would like to visit my restaurant, I won't name, first drink's on me. I'm very concerned about the future of my restaurant. You know, the restaurant business is the toughest business to operate. We've got the price of food and the price of labor working against us, and I won't go into a lot of detail. What I don't need is for my taxes to go up. What I don't need is for my water and sewer costs to go up. And if the town is successful in bankrupting the Woodsville Fire District, my costs are going to go up. And that's the main reason I'm here today. So I appreciate Senator Gray's amendment. I like the format of it. However, it doesn't rely on property values. And property values are what brings revenue to the town and the district. And the district has to be able to retain their share of that property value. And that's what the old highway formula was based on. And it worked since 1898 with a few tweaks here and there. So I'd like to get us back to that and get us out of your hair and resolve this locally. Nobody would rather do that more than I would. And I'd be happy to take your questions.
Questions? Senator Murphy.
I'm also in the restaurant business, so I feel your pain.
Brother,
That you were the town administrator of Haverhill for 20 years.
yes,
Thank you.
town manager.
Town manager.
And again, I was the principal person that dealt with the districts, the various village districts, on day-to-day matters and even some large matters.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator.
Okay, seeing no other questions, thank you very much. Richard
Thank you,
Gay.
folks.
Guy. Go out. Richard Guy, he may be outside. Oh, we got him here.
Not as far away as you thought. Morning. Still morning, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Richard Guy. I was from North Haverhill. It was my family home, and I'm a Ville resident. And I have a little bit of good news for you. There is a meeting scheduled for next Monday evening at 5 o'clock between the Woodsville Commissioners and the Haverhill Select Board. First meeting they've had planned, and it's going to be on these topics. So I think it's a little good to know that they're going to start a dialogue, which is what you were asking about. I was a precinct commissioner up until 2020 for 35 years alongside Mr. Massini. There's a few things I'd like to just pass as observations. The ideas of the town or Woodsville requesting money at town meeting, it's been a bit adversarial. Basically, you're going and asking for it, and you have to justify it at town meeting, and it hasn't gone really well. And prior to that, we had the formulas that were established in 2009, and even at that time, I saw one little flaw in it, was that they compute the amount of money that Woodsville pays into the town of Haverhill's highway department budget, and they try to return Woodsville's portion back to Woodsville for them to use in their highway department. The problem with it was, in the annual budget for the town of Haverhill, you have a line that said Woodsville road money, and people saw that, and understandably, after a number of years, think, well, the town of Haverhill is subsidizing Woodsville's roads. Even though it was Woodsville's money just being returned to them, it was hard for that connection to always be made. So that was a bit adversarial. So my suggestion, and it's just a suggestion, is do away with all the formulas, do away with all of it, and just simply let the town of Haverhill pay for the out of Woodsville portion of the town of Haverhill, pay for their highway department themselves, and let Woodsville pay for their highway department themselves. You can do that by setting up a special assessment district in the town of Haverhill for their highway department and fire department. No money has to change hands after that. You never have to, they just pay for their own, and that's the way it would be. It's really simple. I've been, as I say, a lot of years involved, and I'm not quite as engaged as I used to be when I was a commissioner. Honestly, I'm getting a little bit burned out on it, as I suspect perhaps you all are. But I heard one thing today that I just want to clarify, because I've heard it before, and they talk about Woodsville having a zero tax rate. I believe the year's 2015 for something like 3 years. Has nothing to do with highway money. Prior to 15, and I was the person for a few years, I was the point person with the DRA, we have to retain a certain amount of money based on our budget from year to year. I kept on arguing that the amount of money they were making us retain was based on our total budget, which includes an electric department, a water department, a sewer department, an ambulance department, as well as the municipal government. And it was like $5 million in total. And they're making us retain a certain amount of money, a percentage of that from year to year. I finally, I won't say won the argument, but I finally got Jamie Dow at the DRA, which was our representative, to say, you know, you're right. It really, those are enterprises. You shouldn't have to municipally retain money for those. So she allowed us to spend it down. So for 3 years, we spent that money down, and that's why we had a zero tax rate. It had nothing to do with the highway funding or any of that. It was just allowing us to only retain the money based on our actual municipal expenses. So, thank you very much. I'm so sorry you have to deal with this stuff.
No problem. Questions from the senators? Seeing none, thank you very much. James Graham.
Thank you,
Welcome
Chairman
to the State House.
and Senators. Jim Graham, President of the Woodsville Guarantee Savings Bank. You've heard a lot of testimony today about problems on the Woodsville side, problems on the Haverhill side. I'm going to come at you a little bit differently. Economic development is what makes our bank operate. We're proud of what we do. Similarly, the Woodsville precinct is the commercial center. You've heard that over and over again for the town of Haverhill. And those, whether they're big box stores or the small restaurants that you heard from earlier today, they drive economic development. They drive tax revenue. They drive job opportunities. They drive job retention. That is what is unique about the Woodsville precinct in comparison to other precincts in the town of Haverhill. I'm not going to try to get in the weeds on formula, but Senator Gray, I appreciate what you've done. I think you're really close to the end zone. If we can tweak a formula and come up with an agreement, this can be put to bed once and for all. I'm a lifelong resident of the town of Haverhill, the precinct of Woodsville, and it is disheartening to see the amount of animosity that's been created in the last several years. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right. Senator Ravis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just you somewhat touched on this, but do you believe that this dispute is perhaps having a negative economic impact on the community?
I don't believe it has at this point, but could have down the road if Woodsville does not have the ability to maintain the infrastructure that it has created up till now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Seeing no other questions, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Looks like Alfred Holden. Welcome to the State House.
My pleasure, sir. Alfred J. Holden, Town of Haverhill, Precinct of Woodsville. I'm going to follow your instructions this morning, sir. I'm not going to be redundant. All I'm going to say is that I think you're on the right path. Appreciate the work that you and the committee are doing. And all I want to see is what is fair for all the citizens of the Town of Haverhill. And hopefully you can come to that resolution and give the Town of Haverhill some guidance in making that happen. Enough is enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions from the senators? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Stephen Robbins.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm Steve Robbins. I'm the fire chief in Woodsville. I'm a past selectman, held other multiple jobs through the town, emergency management director and health officer for many, many years. I live in the Woodsville Fire District. I own a business there. I own a couple properties there. And I think about anything that I was going to say has been said. I would just like to express my appreciation to the senator and the committee for taking this on. I agree in concept with the amendment, and I think with some tweaking of numbers, as everyone has said, I think that we can get there. Thank you.
Questions from senators? Seeing none, thank you very much. Stephen Wheeler.
Good morning, I'm Stephen Wheeler, a commissioner in Woodsville. And the first amendment that came up was diminishing the boundaries back.
That was just a mistake.
Right. It was really concerning to me because all three commissioners in Woodsville live outside those boundaries. When 18 my adult life since I came out of the Army, back from Vietnam. believe that we need to sit down at a table. I really appreciate your thought, Senator Gray, and that amendment that you wrote up. We just need to come to a conclusion of what those formulas are going to be. I'd be very happy if we went back to similar to what we had in 2009. I think that's what's needed to come up with. We don't worry about the sidewalks. We don't worry about any of that stuff. We have our own people that take care of the sidewalks and all that. You had mentioned that before. But I do like the idea of the ambulance contract and the sewer contract and all that. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Questions from senators? Seeing none, thank you very much. DRA. Is Mr. Roth over there? Oh. Are both of you on the list? You can both come up. That's right now, Matthew and you are the last two, so Matthew. I was saving you for the end,
Still good morning. Matthew Jelliber.
My 12 o'clock meeting, so, you know.
Well, you're on schedule.
Amen.
Senator, thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Matthew Jelliber. I'm a resident of Haverhill. I also served on the town select board. These guys are all my neighbors. I want to be able to get along with them. I don't want to have to look the other way when I'm in the, grocery store and stuff. We all want to get along, but we have to agree on a concept that we need to follow the law. And everything that I've seen, I wasn't tempted to follow the law. You cannot have an absurd result. A municipality cannot take more money from a larger municipality than it contributes. And that's what I'm afraid of was happening with the prior formula from 1990. And when we questioned that, when you had $480,000 going to the municipality, and we simply asked, where was this money spent? A reasonable person would say a zero tax rate for 3 years. If you give any more than it's contributed from them in taxes, then that's what in fact you are doing. You're creating an inequitable effect. So I would just ask you to look at that, please. Thank you for your time.
Okay, just any questions from the other side? I'm looking at RSA 52:5 changes in boundaries, which gives the selectmen of the town of any such district established upon petition notice of the parties, it gives them responsibility. So if we do go to RSA 52, then it will be the selectmen in the town, I guess, that set those district boundaries, so.
If in fact we go to Article 52.
Right.
RSA
Okay.
52, I stand corrected. Thank you.
All right. And we'll ask the question, is there anyone else that did not sign up that wants to speak before I get to the last speaker?
I think my name should be on there as Robert Messina.
Robert Messini, okay? Robert, come on up.
I think I'll be brief because everything's pretty much been
You
said.
gotta sit down first and say your name because the people out in computer land they want to be able to hear you.
My name is Robert A. Messini. I reside at 40 Slate Ridge Drive in Haverhill Corner. I served on the Haverhill Planning Board for around 20 years and the Haverhill Cooperative School Board for 18 years and as selectman for 9 years. I actually served with Rick Ladd, who spoke earlier. I think you're headed in the right direction with your proposed amendment. I think there's some flaws in exactly how compensation would be made back to Woodsville, because a mile of road in Haverhill certainly can't be compared to a mile of road in Woodsville. And the same thing with the fire department. The equipment needed in Woodsville is different than is what's needed in rural areas. But taking those things into consideration and asking you to take a look at your formula, I have nothing else to say.
All right, questions from the senators? Okay.
Thank you.
And the gentleman in the back that stood, come on up if you want to speak. Your name is?
Darwin Cogston. I live in Pike.
Spell the last name?
Clogston.
Clogston?
Yes, Darwin, Darwin. I know I'm not on your list to speak. Just quickly, I made a couple notes from people who have been speaking. I think it's more than obvious that although it's great to talk about the old days, we're not in 1990 anymore. I think the First Amendment that came through, I didn't like parts of it, but the part that I did like, that I did not see in the Second Amendment was the Woodsville Fire District. You already have the vehicle to solve this problem. Chapter 52, you have the case law. The Woodsville Fire District is hereby established as a village district governed by RSA Chapter 52 and shall have all the rights, duties, and obligations of a village district pursuant to such chapter. All obligations and liabilities of the fire district shall be the obligations and liabilities of the village district. There are other districts and precincts in the state of New Hampshire, and I don't know as why Woodsville should be carved out specifically. You already have case law, Chapter 52. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
And that's pretty much what that amendment that I wrote, the last one, will do, except for the provision that it would have a formula for distribution of funds raised if an agreement is not reached and signed by the two parties. So, questions from the other senators? Seeing none, thank you very much. And that being our last speaker, we'll get DRA up there. And I guess you're going to have to drag another chair up to get both of you.
Good morning, Senator Gray and members of the committee. My name is Peter Roth. I'm an attorney for the Department of Revenue Administration.
And my name is Adam Denoncourt. I'm the Assistant Director of the Municipal and Property Division.
So I think my testimony will be very brief. The department supports the amendment that was circulated previously. We've had a chance to quickly look at the amendment to the amendment, and we think that the committee is generally on the right track and that these things can probably solve a lot of the problems we've been hearing about this morning from the various sides of the aisle here. There are some, obviously there's I think some room for improvement, some things that can be adjusted in the current in the legislation that's now being proposed, whether it's with respect to the accountability issues, sharing of funds, the boundaries and the functions of the village district, and those are all things that I think can be worked out in a conversation between the parties, and it's good to hear that peace may be breaking out all over with a meeting between the commissioners and the selectmen. The department simply would be happy to help in any way to facilitate those conversations or participate in them to the extent that that would be helpful and useful to anybody.
Any separate comments?
Nothing to add.
All right, we had one person testify that if I have a special assessment district, that I could do things differently. Would you explain to me what the advantages or disadvantages of a special assessment district would cause in this area? Or do you need more time to tell me that?
I would need more time.
Okay. All right, questions from the senators? All right, thank you very much. That completes the people who testified. I don't know if we had a sign-up sheet online for this meeting. We did. All right, how many people for and against?
Okay, online, just 13 supporting the amendment, which was, and 1 opposed.
Okay, thank you. All right, so there's a meeting Monday. What time is the meeting Monday? 5 o'clock? Can I get here to there from here in an hour? I don't think so. Hour and 45 minutes, all right. If I get an invitation, I will do my best. I got a meeting here that's supposed to go to 4, but if I get an invitation from both sides, can't be just one side, it's got to be both sides, to attend that meeting, I will do my best to get there, okay? If I'm wanted, that's fine. If I'm not wanted, I won't, it won't break my heart, believe me. Okay? So, remember that. Next week, the Senate is on break. Tuesday at some time, do you want to, I want to have a special, a subcommittee on this, and to have a subcommittee, I can only use 2. So if I'm on it and Senator Perkins Coca's on it, I'm going to have that on Tuesday, and I need a representative from both sides that can speak to it, and the DRA to be there. And if NHMA wants to be there, they can be there too, although they have taken a back seat in this thing, and we're going to work on the formula, okay? And it'll be a public meeting, but the public isn't necessarily going to get to say anything. It's going to be those representatives that are going to be representing the groups, okay, that are going to do this. And I guess if I needed 2 from each side, you know, I might be able to be talked into that. But again, that can be your thing of cooperation, that you decide if it's 1, if it's 2, you know, people that are going to come to that meeting, all right? I'm going to schedule that through Deb. Are you available on Tuesday at the regular time, 9 o'clock?
I think so. I may have a 4.5-year-old that's floating around.
You know, just like when the grandchildren are around, okay? Okay, so that's where I'm going with this thing. And we are going to try to get to a formula. Now, that formula, I hope that formula is never used. Because in that bill, remember, or the amendment to the amendment, as the people from DRA said, if you sign an agreement that says this is how we're going to do this, that agreement will, the stuff in what's going to go into chapter law is going to be suspended. But if you ever don't do it, that's going to come whizzing right back at you, and you're going to have to live with that formula. So hopefully these discussions and what we put into this bill will be the basis for you guys to sit down and sign an agreement so that you're operating right through chapter 52, and to keep the state out of it, okay? I don't want to be in there. All right? With that, well, you're gonna have to ask me afterward, and I will stay around. All right, with that, We're going to adjourn this meeting, our business being complete for the day.
Thank you, Senator Gray. Special assessment.